Okay, savages. This subject has come up about 3 times in the last 10 days, 3 different people. So that's a sign to me to address it. When I say that we affect the outside world by internally, by integrating our own stuff, if someone comes into my life and they challenge me or trigger me, if I integrate what comes up in me and I work with me, if I change internally, this person will change or the outer dynamic will change. And ultimately, that's how the world changes. This is what I believe. This is how I live. But what has come up is, few people have asked around the topic and always in frustration, they kind of think, oh, that you just don't get involved in the world. So, oh, you just don't care about poor people or, yeah, if there's a war going on and I suppose what I'm trying to do, this is actually a topic for another video as well. The amount of times that people misinterpret what I say is unbelievable. Like I'd say, oh, we integrate ourselves, our own stuff, we will change the energy will be reflected out in the world. And people come back and say, oh, so you want people to die? I was like, hang on, when did I say that? What, they hear, and this happens regularly. We hear what we want to hear. I remember years and years and years ago, I think it was about 17, when I started going to Buddhist meditations. And there was about 5 of us in a room, and there was a Buddhist nun, and she guided us into meditation. And then we had a talk afterwards, and there was a rug on the floor, and like she looked at the rug, and a rug, and I'd say there was like 6 people maybe in the room, 5, 6 people. And she said, okay, there's 5 or 6 different rugs. We're all seeing a different rug, because obviously different colors are going to stand out to different people, different shapes. They're going to see it differently. And they, like, if we spoke about it, we might point out 5 or 6 different things. So it is fascinating to me is that when I say, because all my videos are about the same thing, pretty much everything I say is about the same thing: self-responsibility, integrate your own stuff in a nutshell. But yet people will come back to me and they've heard something that I didn't say at all, or completely misconstrued what I say. Like it can be frustrating at times, and I kind of think, I don't know how to say this any easier or simpler. But that topic, or that point, that if I integrate my stuff, the dynamic changes. Now, if you're unsure of what I mean by this or examples of this, there is 2 videos of and I think they're called the benefits of shadow work part 1 and the benefits of shadow work part 2. And they detail clients that I've worked with who have integrated their own stuff, and people around them started to change and started to communicate differently or interact differently. Now, they didn't go to the people and say, you have to behave differently. There was none of that. Now, I've had countless experiences of this. Now, 2 points. One is that question that people think that, oh, you don't get involved in the world. Like, today, the day that I'm recording this, there's protests protests in England. I don't know if they're around the world about vaccine passports and lockdowns and that kind of thing. So I don't protest. No interest in protesting, waving a flag or any of that thing. And the reason is, more important things I can do with my time that are more beneficial to the frequency of the planet or to other people. So for me to record this or to communicate or to do my own inner work, my own guidance is that this is my priority. This is paramount to me. So me to go out and hold a banner for an hour or 3 hours or whatever feels of no use to me. That's one point. The second point is that I would say that we fuel polarity. Whatever we resist persists. Whatever we're protesting against, the more passionate we are and we're fighting against this thing, we're actually fueling it. We're basically saying to the universe, I haven't understood this yet. That's the wrong word to use. I haven't integrated this yet. I haven't processed this, my resistance to this that is in my being. Can you please send more of it? So all the QAnon stuff, all the conspiracy stuff against vaccine passports, against whatever, the more passionate these people are and adamant they are to stop this, the more of it they're actually generating. They're fueling the polarity. So it's not that I suggest that we don't go out and do these things. Uh, we are gods. Like, and I genuinely believe most people fucking don't believe, as spiritual as you may be, most people just won't believe that. They reject it. If I can be fucking centered enough, look at Tank Man in Tiananmen Square. I've used that image on my Instagram timeline. I wrote a post about it or referred to it. But I mean, it's a famous image. Guy with his groceries going home one day who stood in front of three tanks, armored tanks, changed the world. That image is iconic. That was a man who had enough. That was a man who was centered enough. Now, it's not to say he was full of courage. I'm sure he was shitting himself. I don't know what happened to him afterwards. Maybe he was killed by the army or imprisoned, for the rest of his life, or beaten. We don't know, or I don't know. Maybe that information is out there. But the point is, in those moments, he had the power to stand up. So it's not about joining a fucking group or a cult. It's about it's an internal journey, and it's an individual journey. We want others to come with us, come and protest. It's a movement, it's a revolution. It's not about that. It's about working into that place on your own. And that's fucking terrifying. That's individual work that each individual has to do. Each individual has to cross that bridge, has to go into the unknown, the road less traveled, or where there is no path at all. That's where we're going individually. And I know this very well because I had my nights, living in the car in the horrors. And I had supportive people around me. I had two or three, who listened to and at one point I just had one or two who'd listened to my voice messages, who knew I was in the horrors. But ultimately, they can't save me. They can listen to the voice message, or we can have a phone call, but they can't walk with me through that road. You have to do that yourself. I had to do that myself. Each individual has to go to those places on their own. It's not a group thing. But the second point I wanted to make was that the misinterpretation that, is that the right word? I don't know. That if I'm integrating my stuff, that all around with me will be rosy. This regularly comes up as well. And I've never said that in any of my videos, so I have to address that. It's that black and white of like herd mentality. We're all supposed to be vegan. We're all supposed to eat meat. No, you fucking clown. Listen to your own guidance. What does your body and your instinct say? And maybe your instinct says, today I need meat, or today I shouldn't eat meat, or whatever. Follow your instinct, walk your path. So, I had when I was living in the car, I saved up my money. Some of you know the story, and I bought a van, and I was going to convert the van into like a camper van and live in it because I couldn't afford rents. Now, I'd saved up for weeks and weeks and weeks, but sourced this van, did loads of research on converting it, bought the van. I got loads of synchronicities. I knew my instinct. This is the right van. Buy this van. Bought this van. Now, this was 15 years old or something, the van was. Drove it away. Within about 10 minutes, the van died. Long story short, because I don't have time to go into it, you've probably heard it before. I lost the van, lost my money, and ended up back in the 20-year-old Volkswagen Polo. Now, number of people around me wanted to either go to the house with baseball bats and become violent and try and get my money back and so on, or people wanted me to go to the police, or people wanted me to get a solicitor and go lawyers and all that kind of stuff. I knew in my guidance, in my instinct, that was not the path for me. I had manifested this. I generated this experience for me to teach me something, to take responsibility. There's an ant on my leg. And that was my path. So in the days after, it actually became more difficult for me to put out the fires of other people. I got to make peace with it fairly quickly, but other people for days or weeks afterwards they were more reactive about what had happened to me. So what's my point? My point is, it's the internal guidance. So there are people in my life that I'm not best friends with, I'm not rosy with, because my guidance is to fucking stand up and say no. If you've got a bully or someone manipulating you, or I don't know whatever your example may be, it's not about like, oh, I'm going to integrate that, and then we're going to be best friends forever. I have never said that. Follow your instinct and guidance. Like, look at what's happening in the world. If I integrate it, does it mean they'll leave me alone and they won't try and vaccinate me? They won't force me to wear a mask. Not necessarily. Maybe your guidance is to fucking walk into the supermarket, the restaurant, whatever it is, without a mask and have that conversation. And they say, sorry, sir, where's your mask? And you express yourself. Can you express yourself without becoming aggressive and panicking or blaming you? Because this person is just doing their job. They're just trying to fucking keep their job to pay their rent or whatever it may be. And they're told to make you have a mask on. Can you communicate? Can you weave your way through that? So if you have someone difficult or manipulating you, it's not that they'll necessarily become all calm and rosy. Your guidance, and most of my clients are women. I'm running out of time. The guidance is to assert ourselves. Same with me. I was a doormat, early on in my lifetime. In this lifetime, I was very placid and have been walked on by people, and I ain't blaming the people. They were teaching me something. Don't be walked on. Stand up for yourself, assert yourself. So there has been times, and there is continued times, where I'd say to people, enough, good luck. Life is short. I'm not making this a rosy relationship. It's like my instinct might say, you've tried, game over, close the door, move on. And I do know at times I've had people think, oh my God, like you're angry, and it's like, no, I've moved on. Like that's my guidance is move on, get on with my work. My time is limited, move on to something else. But there is that misconception that by integrating something will arrive at some kind of rosy conclusion. As you integrate it, your guidance might be to move on from this person, get on with your life, leave your spouse, whatever it may be. I don't know. Can you follow that guidance? Like my guidance was to get the fuck out of Ireland. It wasn't that like, oh, if I integrate the energy in Ireland would become open and free and I'll be really happy and I'll live the rest of my life here. No, I got to a point where no, okay, I'm done. Time to move on next. And that's okay. It's not that, if we move on from people, it's not that we hate them or you're escaping them. It's that, no, it's like that lesson is complete. Now, sometimes as well, I feel that many of the people I work with, and it comes from me as well, when I was younger, we can be too passive and allow too much. Like I have a habit of allowing people take too much of my time. When I started this work, I worked with people for free, and then I worked for people for very little money. And that is a pattern for me to kind of be helpful, especially like I want people to work through this. I want people to integrate their shadow. I want to be of use, of service to people. It feels good for me. But sometimes that can be taken advantage of. And I'm not for a second blaming the people who seemingly take advantage of me. This is my responsibility to be a grown man, to be assertive, to recognize, oh, hang on a second, I've limited time, draw the line. So I wouldn't perceive that as like not as my ego or not integrating. I would see that as progress for me, because in the past I would just continue to be walked on, or would continue to give up my time. So that's a step forward for me. So I suppose for each individual, it's to find, that's why I mean, it's not about being vegan or not being vegan. It's about you finding what's your guidance in this situation and honoring that guidance. And often, the guidance may be to do something that you like, moving on. It might be the guidance might be to do something that is uncomfortable for you. That's not easy. That's where the growth is. If it's like comfortable, like, oh, I let this go. Well, that's not really guidance. There's not really growth in it. Standing up, asserting yourself, speaking your mind when it's uncomfortable is growth, is positive. So to return before I wrap up to the, protest or vax stuff, what's your guidance? If you assert yourself and you're integrating your stuff, maybe you don't need to do, if every person, right, stood up for themselves around the V and the masks or any of these things, you wouldn't need any fucking protests. You know what I mean? But it's like people want to be in a group. They want to be in a movement, a revolution, a collective, because they want to feel like they have support of other people around them. This is a lonely path. This is an individual path. I'm pretty much out of time. Thanks for listening. I appreciate recent donations a lot. I'm very grateful. It shows that people value my work. So thanks for that. I'm out of time. Share it around. Be well.